it's TEDA time.
Living in Terrebonne, living in Terrebonne. You sure won't want to miss it, and I'll bet that you'll revisit living in Terrebonne.
Local Terrebonne Parish Economic News.
Hello and welcome to this edition of TEDA Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad you're joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it. And very glad to have back with us with TEDA, Catherine Gilbert Theriault. Thanks for joining us again.
Oh, thanks for having me today.
All right. Of course, Kathy is the TEDA Business Retention and Expansion Director. And joining her, a man that most people know and recognize, Mr. Kenny Wood Sr. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Kenny.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Very glad to be here with you.
CEO of K&B Industries, and I got to tell you, I've been knowing K&B Industries my entire life, and there's a reason, right, Catherine?
Oh, absolutely. K&B started very innocuously, I think, in Mr. Kenny's garage, and it has grown over the years to be a very well-respected company, and the fact is that they've grown into different sectors of the market, and they've always been good corporate partners, growing from just the oil and gas industry into now semiconductor industry and aerospace.
Wow.
So it's that growth that we're here to celebrate today, because K&B is celebrating its 50th year this year.
Yeah. 50 years has got to be exciting, huh, Mr. Kenny?
Yes, it is, and it went by pretty quick.
Okay. Would you have ever thought, when you guys started out, again, with those meager beginnings in a garage, that you would celebrate 50 years?
No.
No.
No, I'm one of the type of guys that take it day by day and try to do the best we can do and keep going and take advantage of the opportunities. Of course, first of all, we put God first in our lives to make our decisions, help make our decisions, and we try to make the right decisions. And a lot of times opportunities come along, you some of them don't turn out like you think it might, which is life, right? That's what life's all about. We learn as we go.
Right.
So,
and we take those curveballs as well as fastballs.
As long as we learn by our mistake. But yeah, it's been a pretty blessed ride. I was blessed with good health and was able to do the things. It was 50 years crept up on me pretty quick.
I got to ask, what was it like in the beginning? And tell us a little bit about, we've seen this on television programs occasionally. We've seen some movies about it, but this is a real life story of yours. What was the thought process about starting the company in a garage?
Well, I guess I can go back when I was a young man growing up, work ethics. My parents, we did a lot of different things. My parents, we were 9 siblings, and my dad did a lot of different things to help raise us. So we had a good work ethics.
Good foundation, huh?
Good. Yeah, that's right. And to do things in the right way.
Okay.
But going forward, I ended up didn't know what I was going to do when I finished high school. I kind of went to work in a warehouse in a plumbing warehouse in New Orleans.
Okay.
And I got to walking down St. Charles Street where I had an aunt that lived not too far from there, and walked into a library and started reading books and different things. And I said, I've got to go get myself educated to do something. And I had somewhat of a background with on my mom's side on people. My grandpa worked in the sugarcane industry and built equipment. So I had a little background of that.
Okay.
I started reading about machine tool technology and all about that. So I decided to go to Delgado Community College, and I took up the machinist trade and leading into engineering, but I never did get to that point. I took up mechanical drafting and different stuff, metallurgy and stuff like that. So ended up finishing that in a couple of years, and I didn't know exactly where I was going to go to work. I still didn't know where I was going to be, so I decided to go to all the refineries. I was building refineries along the river at the time, and I went in there and I did a few interviews, and I didn't particularly like the environment too much. I said, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. Mm-hmm. And I had an opportunity to go to Houston to go to work as a machinist, and I said, well, I'm not going to do that just now. So, and I came to Houma. I found a job in Houma as a machinist, and worked in 2 or 3 different companies. And after a number of years, I said, matter of fact, in 1974, we were kind of a little recession, and people thought I was crazy to make a decision to go into business for myself. And I already had a machine in my garage that I piddle with prototype type of machining.
Right.
And that's when I decided to go in business for myself. I said, when I told my wife that, she thought I was crazy, but had 2 kids, but I was in a pretty good position to do that. And I knew that if that didn't work out, I can get a job anywhere in the world with the experience I had.
You were a machinist, and
I worked in the industry for 13 years.
Right. I mean, so you could get a job if you needed to. If it
so that's kind of where I started, and then of course after I made that decision, I was getting ready to leave, and I had a real good friend of mine that I was real close to, work with, and he decided to come in business with me. So so we partnered up and worked with him for 5 years, and it's history from there.
That's how K&B.
Yeah, that's how I got started. Yeah.
Wow. I love it. I appreciate the information. I appreciate you guys sticking around. Got a whole lot more to talk about in celebrating the 50 years of K&B. All right. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
It's TEDA time.
Tune in to HTV10 for some TEDA time. On this show, you will learn what's going on in Terrebonne Parish with Cohen B. Guidry and all of his special guests that he brings along.
Local Terrebonne Parish economic news.
Hello and welcome back to this edition of TEDA Time. Again, your host, Keith Whiteside, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad to be joined by Ms. Catherine and Mr. Kenny. And Catherine, K&B's been doing some really good things for a long time, and there's some pretty significant reasons why.
Well, absolutely. To kind of recap what they've done over the years, as Mr. Kenny said, he started in 1974 with the company. By the 1980s, the company was doing the pipe threading, but with proprietary threads for specific companies.
Oh, wow.
Those are specific licensing. And they moved on, kind of grew their facility on the east side of town off Grand Caillou Road. But by 2000, they needed to add on to that facility, and so they did that. Back in 2008 was when they realized that opening in Houston made a lot of sense with a lot of the pipe coming into the Houston port. It cut down on transportation and logistics to thread it there in Houston. But in 2009, they were getting a lot of interest from their customers to manage their inventory, to have parts and pipe stacked, ready to go. So they got into the inventory management business starting then. In 2014, though, is when kind of what I like to think of as the crown jewel of the company was built in Schriever. A beautiful facility, nice, big, large warehouse where most of the operations are at the time. In 2020, they've expanded the facility to double their advanced manufacturing capability and, working with those close tolerances to complete some turnkey aerospace. This is when we see them moving into the aerospace side of the market. In 2021, they purchased a building on Equity, and that is a huge 10 acres, 118,000 square feet facility to expand that advanced manufacturing processes. That includes a 5-axis machine or 2 and a clean room, all for moving into that semiconductor industry. And so now they're using 3D printers, also getting into that additive machining movement.
Yeah.
So, it's been a steady growth. And it's really interesting because if you go into the corporate offices of K&B, you see Mr. Kinney's original lathe there in the offices. And so it's really pretty neat.
Right. So really interesting, Mr. Kinney, that of all that growth, you had an option to not do this and go to work in Houston, and instead started your own business and expanded to Houston.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Yep. Well.
And so you've got a number of different machines that you guys have proprietary ownership of, and y'all have really kind of made your staple in oil and gas and now expanding into other areas. So kind of cool. Let's talk a little bit about some of those machines. Jay, pull up some of those pictures. Mr. Kinney can tell us what these are.
Let's see what we're looking at. We're looking at I think it's our new clean room that we have for semiconductor, and it's a piece of a part that was built for the semiconductor industry that goes on machinery that makes the wafer for the chip.
Wow.
So every part that we machine in that particular industry has to go through a process after it's machined. It has to go through different processes, and one of them is the cleaning process. It goes through a cleaning process. Well, it got several steps it goes through, but then it goes into I call a semi-clean room, which is a clean room as well. Right after it goes through that cleaning process, and then it goes into the clean rooms where everything is processed and assembled to where it needs to be shipped to the customer. After it's through that process, it's being shipped to the customer.
Lots of steps. Steps.
So we've got to keep all the particles, dust particles, and all that got to be kept. It's a Class 6 or Class 7 clean room. It's pretty. Yeah.
Very high tech.
Yeah. So it's very, very important.
Okay.
We always did, going back a little bit, the diversification of K&B Industries. I got 1 minute and 27 seconds, right? I can talk a little bit more about it.
Right.
But we always did, you talk about economic development. We always did keep the word in that diversification because we have to in our particular area. We don't have large manufacturing companies that you can subcontract parts for to build the equipment. So you got to be diversified, So,
right.
And that's where that's how we got involved in it.
All right.
It's always been in the back of our mind, but you got to be ready to do it, and you got to be the right time to do it financially, and as well as people training is very important. Education, we get involved in that big time. So that's all important for growth, and you got to be patient.
Okay. Show one more picture, Jay, if you don't mind, and we'll end with that one. What about this one, Mr. Kinney? Is that part of that cleaning process?
That particular machine right there, I don't know the exact one we're looking at, but it's a five-axis. That's probably he's machined some, they call it chambers.
Okay.
It's another part that you probably won't see because it's proprietary, and they don't like for us to show those parts.
No.
So
keep that protected.
So yeah, if I recognize, that's Ross.
Okay.
I know a lot of the guys that he's been with us a number of years. And he's machining one of those cylinders. Okay. Well, chambers, rather.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more when we come back. All right, Kathy and Mr. Kinney will stay with us. You do the same. We'll be right back right here on this edition of TEDA Time.
It's TEDA Time.
Tune in to HTV10 for some TEDA Time. On this show, you will learn what's going on in Terrebonne Parish with Cohen B. Guidry and all of his special guests that he brings along.
Local Terrebonne Parish economic news.
Hello and welcome back to this edition of TEDA Time. Again, your host, Keith Whiteside, joined by Miss Catherine and Mr. Kinney, talking about the 50-year celebration of K&B and all the things that you guys have been able to do. But Catherine, they've been very dedicated in their commitment to the community and partnering. One of the words we use all the time, partnerships, and K&B certainly done that.
No, absolutely. K&B is one of those companies that we look to when we're talking about good corporate citizens in Terrebonne Parish. K&B stands out as one of those. Mr. Kinney's had a passion for education, and so by partnering with Fletcher Technical Community College and Nicholls State University, as well as the Terrebonne Parish School District. A few years ago, they gave a machining to the school district, and all of it is aimed at helping prepare students for the jobs that are in our community. And, they've also created their own in-house training program. So I'd like to give Mr. Kinney a chance to talk about that education bent that he's had for so long.
Well, it goes back a long way. We've talked about that for years, about trying to, I was Travis Levine, of course, he was with, y'all familiar with Travis.
Oh, yeah.
And, I worked with Travis for a long, long time to try to improve on the type of training we do. Of course, in our particular area, you don't need 500, 600 machine tool operators or machinists. You need just a few. And it's always tough for the school system to get the instructors for that particular area of our business. So, and I knew that for years and years, but we worked on it to try to get the technical school, Fletcher, geared up to do that. But over time, we decided probably the best thing to do is continue working with Fletcher, but set up our own training program and put everything we have in our particular facility together as a training program, and also as an orientation process for hiring people, to try to get them to understand, put them through 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it takes, to understand the industry that we're in, the business we're in, and how important it is to serve the customer. So all that training is being implemented as we speak. And of course it's a constant. You're constantly trying to improve on your processes and your efficiencies because we compete in a lot of this industry. You diversify, and it's not easy to get started because of the you're competing against people all over the world in that semiconductor. Aerospace, we still not there yet. We working on it. We still committed to do it, but it's going to take longer. So, that cost. Right. The cost is there, and we got to be prudent in our decisions that we make the right ones for long term, because we always did look at the company as a separate entity, to keep it strong, Right. So personally, you just can't take too much out of the business, because
Right.
with your ups and downs, and oil and gas is still our bread and butter. I mean,
Right.
around our area, and we hope that it's not going to be as robust as it has been, but I think it's still going to be good. So we got to find out what that level is going to be, and nobody could tell you. It's going to be 5 years, 10 years maybe, before we know where that level's at. So,
Right.
But yeah, that training is very, very important for us, and we constantly trying to train our people.
Well, it seems like the success of the company has also been the success of your employees.
Oh, no doubt.
You guys celebrate that. Tell us a little bit about this plus factor.
The
plus factor. Yes, sir.
Plus factor. Body, mind, and spirit, right?
Okay.
I mean, you got to have a healthy body, you got to have a healthy mind, and you got to have a healthy spirit, a healthy faith in
Right.
what you do, a passion for what you do. So we try to do that. We have our little training, I call it a gym, that anybody wants to get involved in physical training,
Right.
something like that, they got the opportunity to do that. And we have our little chapel, if we have a little problems here and there, I'll just tell the guys, we don't push it, but look, if you're having a bad day, take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes, and go sit in there a while and talk to your maker,
Mm-hmm.
and in the mind, it goes back to the training.
Right. Right.
We have people that come to us that have been in the industry for a long time, 5, 10, 15 years, young guys come, and we put them through that, and they said, wow, we didn't know that. So we help, and we all have to do that, right?
Sure.
Continuing training, I believe in that.
Well,
in our
and-
industry, the technology changes so quick.
Right.
And that's a challenge for us.
Right.
Technology and training is a challenge.
Yeah.
Because it costs to do that.
Right.
So, and you're still trying to compete with people,
Well, but if you're celebrating and building a good spiritual base, and we're allowing for good health from a physical standpoint, you're going to allow your mind to be as sharp as it can be
right.
to keep up with that changing industry.
That's right.
And it seems like you guys have really been able to do that.
Yeah, and we just want to keep the people aware of that we,
Right.
we can't get complacent.
Yeah.
We
Always
got to
look for
continue
something
trying to learn.
Yeah. After 50 years of celebrating huge success, never want to be complacent. It echoes the importance of the value that y'all show in your company, in your people, and being able to give them that opportunity and venue. So we appreciate it, Mr. Kinney. Congratulations on 50 years. Some final thoughts, Ms. Cathy?
Well, we work with companies of all sizes on all sorts of initiatives and growth. And anytime TEDA can be of value and a conversation, we're here to help.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, no problem at all.
All right.
Thank you.
And that will do it for
Appreciate
this edition of TEDA Time. But don't go anywhere. A lot more local programming right here on HTV.